You are listening to the Cattle Call Podcast. This is the place where computer-aided design and drafting meets humor and practicality, with a touch of business acumen thrown in for fun. Jim and Rocco, the owners of Zentech Consultants, the premier U.S. technology consulting firm for architecture, engineering, construction, and manufacturing, discuss the fascinating world of CAD with some humor and some honesty. The Cattle Call Podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Cattle Call Podcast. I am your charming and entertaining host, Jim Coppinger, and with me is my partner.
Good morning, it's Rocco.
My partner, good morning. Did you get a new name?
I'm just trying to think of a way to respond to your charming comment.
Well, I know you can, but this is a family show, so we can't use that sort of language. So today is a very special episode for us, and this is going to be important later on. You'll hear why, because I'm telling you, Rocco doesn't know what we're talking about today, and Rocco didn't get a script today on what we're going to be recording today, because I wanted to ask
never
Rocco,
know what you're talking about, Jim.
Well, that's fair. No one ever does. Do you know what today is, Rocco?
No.
Today marks a very special day for the Cattle Call Podcast. It is our... Wait, I'm trying to play a sound effect. There it is. It is our 50th episode. We have done 50 episodes as of today. Woohoo! We've been around long enough to actually hit a landmark. How cool is that?
Wow.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool. So this is what I want to talk about today. So that's why I'm not... So our topic today, right, is we're going to do a podcast about podcasts. We're going to talk about how we do the show, what we do the show, why we do the show, right? And and again, normally Rocco knows in advance what we're talking about, and he has answers prepared, and he's all and today I'm just going to torture him because it's our 50th episode, and I can, and make him think of his answers on the fly. So if he screws up, we all get to point at him and laugh, and that'll be fun for me. So that's what we're doing today. So, all right. So our 50th episode. So, setting aside the fact that I'm actually amazed that Rocco hasn't murdered me yet. Like I said, I thought this would be a really good opportunity to talk about the concept of podcasting itself, and in particular, how it plays into the design build technology world. I think when we first started this podcast, we really weren't sure what we were doing, and let's face it, if you listen, you know that we really still don't. But we figured we'd give it a try and see if there were some folks out there who'd be interesting in hearing two old bull guys just, ramble on about, CAD and design and construction technologies. So now we're 50 episodes in, and we actually have over 2,000 listeners. I mean, sure, TikTok influencers, we're not. But that's a pretty fair run for two dorky old guys recording on our laptops, I think. I know. So I think I've learned a little bit about podcasting and their power over the last 50 episodes. And I think that podcasting is something that's really underused in this industry. So I wanted to take today's episode and talk about how we got here, where we're going, and maybe spark some ideas for other people in the design and build world on how they can get going on their own. So Rocco, I think when I first approached you with the idea of doing a podcast, you were pretty skeptical. If I recall, your answer was something along the lines of like, well, I guess we can give it a try, but I don't think it's going to work. So let's start there. What were your concerns around starting this podcast?
I guess for one, it was probably the I don't want to say fear, but the anxiety behind public speaking, right? And what, I talk to people all day long on the phone and, through Zoom meetings and everything else. And but I'm not used to the kind of the public speaking. And, I don't think this is really, it is and it isn't a public speaking event, I'm not standing here in front of people. So you got to kind of change the mindset a little bit. But I guess the initial concern was, for me personally, was doing something on a personal public speaking level. And I guess the other concern was whether it would take off, whether we'd have listeners, whether people would be interested in the topics and just the concept as a whole.
Yeah. No, that's all understandable. For me, I think it was mainly, like I say, it was the fear that we'd put in the time and the effort on developing the cattle call and literally having nobody listen. Hey, listen, I've been married for 30 years, so I'm personally used to having nobody listen to me, so that wasn't such a big concern there. But it was there nonetheless. I mean, I think that, a lot of folks out there who have expertise in their fields are really hesitant to take that first step and just, record a conversation or discuss a topic that they're passionate about, because they're worried about failing or they're worried about being mocked. Look, Rocco mocks me every day. So, again, that wasn't a real big concern either. I'm used to that. I will say, I think for me, I think the biggest thing was the potential time loss. All right, what really worried me. I mean, we're a small business here at Zentech, right? And Rocco and I both put in a lot of hours as it is, right? And adding time to, work up and record these podcasts on a weekly basis, I mean, that was a potential problem for us. So Rocco, right? So that our listeners who are considering podcasting on their own know how much prep time and recording time really does go into making this show each week. And do you think it's worth it now that we've been doing it for 50 episodes?
I don't. It doesn't require a huge amount of prep time. I mean, let's say, let's say 1 to 2 hours all around. So it's not a lot. I mean, it's just gathering your thoughts together, and I think that, again, a lot of people are hesitant to express their views around industry-related topics, right? Like, let's not go crazy. We're not talking about politics here, But I think there's, and you guys have seen with all the great guests that we have on the podcast, there's a lot of people with a lot of interesting views and a lot of interesting information to share. And so for anybody who's thinking about getting started with the podcast, you'd be surprised. I mean, if you're somebody who's, even middle-aged like us, let's say, you've got a lot of experience. You've got a lot of information to share. You've got a lot of, knowledge, and that can help people. I mean, that's the bottom line is about the education and helping other people grow. And so I think that's important.
Yeah, I do. I agree with you 100%. So I would say from my standpoint, for me, the biggest struggle each week is always the topic. And like I said, you're absolutely right. It does not take a lot of time to do this at all. Far less than we were worried about, really. But like I said, for me, the struggle is always the topic, right? It's finding, what we're going to talk about. And the way that we've handled that is that Rocco and I will periodically put together a list, right, of potential subjects. And those are usually based on, discussions and problems we've come across while working with our clients. To be fair, we do schedule a few of those based on, the type of work that we do and what we see happening in those sections of the industry. Like as an example, right now, I was just looking this morning, we have a list of 22 upcoming topics that we may address. And we add to that as new things occur to either of us, and then we parse it out periodically, to get rid of things that we either look at and we've, say, we've kind of done that before, or we just don't feel that we can talk about without being too, salesy, if that's even a word. We try real hard not to use the podcast as a sales tool, but like Rocco was saying, as a venue for sharing information and expertise with all of our listeners. So let me ask you that then, Rocco. Why is it so important to not use this podcast as a sales tool? I mean, it's funny because you're the sales guy, right, here at Zentech, but you're always the first one to smack down a topic that has too much sales orientation. Why?
Yeah. Well, let me just preface that by saying, when around your point around the topics, we always welcome suggestions, and if you're interested in being a guest with us, and you've got something to share, we always welcome you guys. So for either topics or requests to be a guest, just email us at sales@zentechconsultants.net. So we'd be happy to hear from you. What the heck? What was your question?
See, this is why I always usually give you no. So I'm saying you never let us do anything that's really sales focused on the podcast.
Sales focused, yeah. Well, I mean, people are resistant to getting a sales pitch. I mean, you don't want to get a 20, 30, 40, 50-minute sales pitch. I mean, you know, you want to be educated. Hey, you know, I forget where I saw it years ago, but, you know, is the importance of salespeople is the education role that they play. So you don't want to be sold. You don't want to get a sales pitch, you know, but a discussion, a point of education is hugely important because it makes people aware of the options that they have out there. In so many different areas that we cover. So whether it's software or techniques or trends that we're seeing, I just don't think that it's a good idea to give, you know, a 20, 30, 40, 50-minute sales pitch.
Yeah, I agree 100%. We're trying to do a podcast. It's an educational system. We're not putting together infomercials, you know, like you get on the cheap cable channels. So good point. I guess the other thing that, you know, I was worried about when starting up this podcast was that it would become a chore. You know, we do a lot of, you know, training and webinars and YouTube videos and so on in our daily work, right? And that stuff, it really just becomes part of my workload after a bit, right? You know, recording a how-to video for, you know, how to estimate in Bluebeam or how to load bid documents in Procore, it becomes about as much fun as filing my taxes, you know, after a while. You know, I worried that this podcast would become, you know, the same thing. One more thing that I had to do. Yeah, but honestly, I have to say that it hasn't, at least not for me. I actually look forward to doing this show each week. You know, I'm not sure why, but it feels different somehow. And maybe it's just always having, you know, Rocco on to talk with or the guests that we have on. But it has not taken on the feel of work for me. I always come away laughing or having learned something new and interesting after every one of these podcasts. So what about you, Rocco? Do you still enjoying doing these shows? Do you see it as something worth keeping on with, or are we going to head for our 100th episode down the road?
Of course we are.
There you go.
Yeah, no, I enjoy it as well. I mean, like I said, the guests make it interesting.
Wait, I don't make it interesting?
No.
Oh, okay, not really. Okay. That's fair. Even I don't find me interesting.
No, but it is. I think it's something fun to do. It brings awareness of Zentech and who we are and what we do. And it allows us to talk about what's going on. And there is so much to talk about in our own industry alone, you know. With everything that's going on, especially nowadays, right, with the impact of the pandemic and how it's impacting people's businesses. And, you know, I mean, I talk to people all day long, and there's people from all over the country, all different backgrounds. And it's nice to bring the experiences of my conversations with folks to the podcast. It's nice to develop new ideas from those conversations. So I definitely enjoy it.
Good. All right. So I think right there we're going to take a break to hear from today's sponsor. But when we get back, I want to get into some of the actual processes that go into our developing this podcast. All right, folks, we'll be back in just a minute with more of the Cattle Call Podcast. All right, everybody. Today we are our own sponsor. This is Jim and Rocco with Zentech Consultants. And what do we want to talk to the folks about today, Rocco?
We're going to talk about how to make barbecue meatballs. How does that sound, Jim?
Sounds good to me.
All right. So we're here to talk about our Procore services. We are Procore certified consultants here. So, Jim, what kind of services do we offer?
So when it comes to your Procore software, we're here to help you guys with just about everything you need, from getting it set up, configuring it to your needs, importing your client database and your previous contracts, structuring reports, or even just helping you guys on the daily with the the workflow and the things that you have to do on a regular basis in terms of timesheets and really just about anything from, like we said, setup and configuration all the way through advanced training for all of your staff on how to use Procore in the method and the way that works best for your firm. So, Rocco, if folks need a little bit of help with Procore, how do they reach us?
Yeah, you can reach us. Hit up our website. We have a new website. It's zentechconsultants.net. That's ZENTEK consultants.net. Or give us a call, 866-824-4459. Or drop us an email, sales@zentechconsultants.net.
All right, and if you call now, Rocco will tell you how to make meatballs. All right, folks, we'll talk to you later. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Cattle Call Podcast. So today is our podcast about podcasting. And in this half of the show, I kind of wanted to walk through the process that we go through on developing the show each week so that, listeners out there who are considering doing their own podcasts, you have a baseline on how to get started and what to expect. So let's begin with the basic concept of recording. You really only need two basic tools to begin podcasting. A decent microphone and a program that lets you record audio files. I happen to use Camtasia, and it works just fine. Now, we've also found that a set of headphones works really well too, just for the sound quality. Now, look, I'm no audiophile, but I think that there is a definite difference in the sound quality when the microphone has to try and filter out the speakers playing on your laptop. So I definitely say get yourself a set of headphones and plug them in. I think it makes a big difference in the way that your recording goes. All right, so Rocco, in terms of the hardware and the software, what are we using, right? And what did it really cost us to get set up and running?
It didn't hardly cost us anything, right? I mean, what do we have to buy? The headset, the microphone, and Camtasia. So I don't know what the costs are, but it's less than a couple $100, really, right?
Yeah. I think the microphones, and we both have
about $60.
$60 each for the mics. I think we got cheap headsets. I mean, mine were like $20 each. We're not doing high quality, top of the line gear here. And Camtasia actually is something that we use all the time anyway. So actually it was part of our business. I didn't even have to buy anything special for the program, but even that's just a couple $100. It's not a really expensive program. So it really is a low cost investment to get yourself up and rolling with these. There's really not a lot that you have to invest in terms of hardware and software. And like I said, particularly if you've already got, a lot of people do have like real high quality headsets already that you're using for Zoom meetings and so on. So there's no investment there if you've already got that stuff. So, modern tech, man, everybody's already got all this for their gaming systems anyway, right? So what's the difference? So, yeah, it's not a lot of investment. So, once you get your recording equipment up and ready to go, it really comes down to, developing your topic and, actually recording the podcast. Now, the way that Rocco and I work here, it's very simple. And I'm not sure if it's the best way out there, but it seems to suffice for us. We choose a topic, right? And then I put together a rough script, except for today. I did not give Rocco a script for today just because I thought it would be fun for a 50th episode to make him guess about what we're going to talk about. Because I'm mean like that. So I am. I'm a terrible person, but it's fun for me. So, I type out a rough script, and it's very rough, right? It just kind of covers what each of us is going to discuss and what questions I'm going to ask poor Rocco each week. And again, it doesn't need to be a word-for-word script. As you guys can no doubt tell, Rocco and I tend to go off on tangents and have some fun with things because it's who we are. It's what we do. It's how we talk. We try really hard to just be ourselves on the podcast and just speak the way that we normally would. Listen, the truth of it is these podcasts aren't really much different than just about any phone call Rocco and I have on a daily basis. Except, I do clean up my language a bit for the podcast.
He does.
I do.
You should hear him.
It's terrible. I spent a decade as an Army medic and a whole lot of years in construction. So, my normal language can get a bit salty, no doubt. But, luckily Rocco is a gentleman and he keeps me in check when I'm dealing with clients or recording the podcast. So one of us at least has a clean mouth. So Rocco, what do you think of the process that we've been using? I mean, is it good as it is? Do you think it needs some tweaking? And do you think that it would translate and work for most folks out there who want to start a podcast for themselves?
Yeah, I think the key is to keep it, is to keep it simple. Don't overthink it. When like you said, Jim, you write out the script. Even with our guests, I mean, we have them, or we put together a list of questions for them to address. We ask them to just think about it in advance, but we don't ask for a huge amount of their prep time because everybody's busy. That's one point. But the other point is if you overthink it, if you're going to write down every answer and then you become like a robot. I mean, you just, keep it free flowing. You want to have an open discussion, and again, there's not an entirely right or wrong answer. We're talking about, experiences, based upon growth here. With time, our experiences all grow, and you guys see a lot of our guests, really bring a lot of real world experience, and we have that experience as well. We experience life all differently, whether you're in the same industry or not. So to keep it free flowing, I think, is important.
Yeah, be ready to adapt and change, right? When things come up or comments come up that you weren't expecting, don't bypass those to stay on script, right? And that's, I think, Rocco's point is an excellent one, right? Don't script it out to the detail, right? Be ready to just talk and say, oh, that was interesting. I was not expecting that reply. Listen, we've had people on who have said things that were the exact opposite of what I was expecting. I was expecting like a positive, oh, this is a great thing. We can do it. It's awesome. And the guy goes, oh, that's a piece of garbage. I hate that program. That thing doesn't work at all. And I'm like, okay, I guess that's where we're going today. And those are some of the best ones that we have. So I think it's a great point. So, and while you're on the idea, then, Rocco, of guests, all right, I think that is something that is really, really important to our podcast, all right? And I think all podcasts, right? But for us, guests are vital to what we do. I mean, look, I have a lot of fun just talking with Rocco, but I really do think that our best episodes are when we have industry experts on to talk about different topics, right? We get, like Rocco was saying, we get entirely new viewpoints. We learn new things, right? And I think it brings a lot more value to our listeners. Not to mention, right, a lot of our guests actually reach out to us with topic ideas of their own, right, which makes this whole thing a lot easier for me to put together. So, Rocco, I mean, you're the guy who actually handles setting up and coordinating all the guests that we have on. Where do you find them, and how do you approach them about coming on the podcast? What's their initial reaction? Right? Are they excited, or are they a little bit hesitant at first?
I pull people from all over that I work with. I'm a principal here, and so, I work with folks at all levels, and so I like pulling people who are existing customers or people who work for different companies in the field, again, because they bring a huge wealth of experience and have a lot to say. I pull folks from some of the companies that we sell, like BricsCAD, for example. We've had a number of guests from BricsCAD on the line, and again, they have a lot to share, and it's not only about promoting the product, but it's allowing them to talk, and and I offer them the option. I don't say, hey, we need you as a guest, or I don't beg them to do it. I offer it. Hey, it would be an honor to have you as a guest. Would you like to join us? And some people are like, yeah, I think so. I've never done anything like that before, but I'm willing to try it. And some folks have come on and they love it. They want to come back. In fact, most folks want to come back. So
yeah, I don't know why they're talking to us. They shouldn't want to come back, but yeah, they do. They do. Gluttons for punishment, I guess.
So that's that's pretty much it. I like finding people from all over the industry with with different topics.
Yeah, I think you do a good job too. I mean, we get some really cool guests.
Thank you.
So I think the last thing that you really need to address from the podcast standpoint is the idea of a podcast hosting service to host and distribute your podcast out on the web. Look, you can, and we looked at this, right? You can try to do this yourself, but that's really not worth the effort. That's where, when we looked at and started setting up, it's like, oh, that's where the work and the headache and the nightmare and would be trying to do this all on our own. So instead, we use a hosting service. We use Anchor.fm. Right? They're our host, and they're, it's really not expensive, right? I mean, for a very small fee each month, they host and they distribute the podcast to all of the major hosting services out there. So the cattle calls on that, iHeart and Spotify and Breaker and Apple and all the other major services. And I think that this hosting service is something really important. And I think because it's given us, I think, much more reach than we would have gotten on our own. And the truth is, we only use their basic package, right? So the cost is really low, and I think it's under $20 a month. It's really negligible. So, Rocco, do you think it's been worth it to have a hosting service? Has it helped us bring the podcast level up, to the level that you hoped we could get?
Yeah, well, you gotta get your name out there. I mean, we obviously do a lot of marketing on our own, and we're on LinkedIn and such, but you need it. I mean, it's just part of what you need with the digital business today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no doubt. Like I said, we do, like Rocco said, we do a little bit of our own. We'll post, as we do new podcasts, we post that on LinkedIn. We have links to the podcast in our email address. Basic marketing things that everybody uses. It's on our website, but I think the bulk of it really does come through that hosting service. So I recommend it. All right, so that is really all there is to it for doing a podcast. And I hope that we'll call it the semi-success of two knuckleheads like Rocco and I can inspire you guys out there to run your own podcast, or at least to come on ours. I really think there's a huge need for information sharing in the design build world. And I think that there aren't enough podcasts and open discussions out there. And I really think there needs to be to grow this industry and make things better for everybody. I have an absolute blast doing these podcasts, and I plan to keep on doing them. Right? And I want everyone out there to either reach out to Rocco about being a guest to talk about a topic you're interested in, or if you decide to start your own podcast, feel free to reach out to Rocco and I, and we'd be thrilled to be guests on your show. So Rocco, one last question before we wrap it up here for today. Going back to where we started, do you think now that the podcast was a good idea? And are you down to keep this thing running for as long as we can?
Oh yeah, I definitely think it's a good idea, and definitely want to keep it going. Like I said, like we both said, it's important to share information with the community and to help people grow. It's important in getting our own name out. But a lot of us don't have time to sit and read. I mean, the web and emails are full of information, but just to have somebody to listen to talk about what's going on in the industry, what they're seeing, their challenges, is hugely important. You could have us on in the background while you're working. So it's yes, definitely we'll keep it going.
Good deal. All right, folks. So before we wrap up here, we just wanted to say thank you to all of you guys for listening to us ramble through 50 full episodes. And we hope that you guys will stick around for many, many more episodes. All righty, folks, we are out of here.
Thanks, guys.
All right, we'll catch you on the next episode of the Cattle Call Podcast. All right, everybody, today's Cattle Call was brought to you courtesy of Zentech Consultants. That's Rocco and I. Zentech Consultants works with design and manufacturing firms to help our clients purchase and implement the software that they need in these complex industries. We provide a single point of contact for clients to buy, develop, and learn the most vital software systems for your specific needs. Zentech strives to be your trusted technology partner from your initial needs all the way through long-term support and training for your entire staff. So Rocco, why don't you tell them how to reach out to Zentech?
All right, yeah, you can reach out to us through zentechconsultants.net. You can email us at sales@zentechconsultants.net, or you can even call us 866-824-4459.
Excellent. We look forward to hearing from y'all.